Okay. All right. So on behalf of ABEA, it's my privilege to welcome each and everyone, all the distinguished guests over here for this technical webinar series initiated by ABEA DC chapter, but it belongs to the all ABEA. And we were hoping that Mayor Mr. Atikul Islam of Dhaka North will join us as a chief guest, but Azad, we're lucky to have Azad here, and he will update on behalf of the mayor after he has a chance to listen to the keynote. So today we are also very fortunate to have Dr. Sufyan Khandekar as the keynote speaker. And his topic is green infrastructure to alleviate waterlogging in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So with that, I will request Sharmin to read the bio of the keynote speaker. Following that, we'll have talk from Dr. Sufyan Khandekar, and then we'll have a message from the mayor and an update given by Azadul Haq from Dhaka. After that, we'll have open forum for question and answer. With that, Sharmin, would you please read the bio?
Dr. Sufyan Khandekar is a engineer with over 50 years of experience in hydraulics.
You got to speak up a little bit.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Yeah.
Dr. Sufyan Khandekar is a world-renowned engineer with over 50 years of experience in hydraulics, river engineering, geotechnical, and civil engineering aspects of complex water resources and infrastructure projects. He traveled worldwide that included Saudi Arabia, Taiwan, Mexico, Egypt, France, China, Dominican Republic, Bangladesh, Canada, and South Korea on troubleshooting and consulting assignments. He also presented technical papers in international conferences that included India, Thailand, Singapore, Morocco, Turkey, Ecuador, Sri Lanka, China, and Colombia. Dr. Khandekar currently serves as Senior Vice President and National Technology Director for Arcadis. With over 27,000 employees and 4.0 billion annual revenue, Arcadis is one of the largest design consultancy firms. Dr. Khandekar is associated with many national and international professional societies and organizations. He is a member and fellow of several professional organizations. He is currently serving as an advisor to Bangladesh Atomic Energy Commission for review and design of the first nuclear power plant in Bangladesh. Dr. Khandekar graduated in civil engineering with first class from Bangladesh University in Dhaka in 1967. He obtained his postgraduate diploma in hydraulics on UNESCO and Netherlands government scholarship from Delft University of Technology and completed his doctoral civil engineering degree from Polytechnic University of New York in 1982. He is married to Dr. Sultana Khandekar and they have two sons, Hassan Khandekar, practicing nephrologist in Long Island, New York, and Nabhan Khandekar in health science. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharmin. So with that, let's listen to Dr. Khandekar. Floor is yours, Sufyan Bhai, please.
Thank you, Sharmin. How do I get to my slides?
You can start sharing the screen again, please.
Oh, okay. I have to do that again?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I think we got, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, thank you, Sharmin, and the participants. It's a good turnout. I'm very pleased that a lot of people in this time has attending from Bangladesh, from Vienna, Austria, and of course in United States, and a few more will join also. Now, Before I start that, today we are going to talk about that how we can address the waterlogging problem in Dhaka city with an innovative scheme or proposal, which is utilizing the green infrastructure to mitigate the waterlogging in Dhaka city. Before I start, let me give a very brief history of Dhaka. In mid-19th century, Dhaka was a center of commerce. And as you can see in this picture that main transportation, of course, was the river transportation. It was a river port. Then in early 20th century, as you can see, this is the Chowk Bazaar area, which is currently known as Nazimuddin Road today. The key thing to be looked into here is that the pavement surface is absolutely minimal. What it does is that when the rain falls, if there is no surface, then the rainwater will infiltrate into the ground, and the surface runoff is going to be very small. So the question of waterlogging will not be there. Besides that, Dhaka had over 300 canals. And those canals used to collect the surface water and convey that water into the surrounding 3 rivers, Buriganga on the south, Balu on the east, Turag on north and west. But the problem created is that in order to protect the Dhaka city against the flooding from the surrounding rivers, flood embankments were built, practically enclosing the entire Dhaka city. Now, the surface water, which used to go directly into the river, cannot go because of this embankment. That has created a problem as far as waterlogging is concerned. What we normally call is a bathtub syndrome. Like a bathtub, if you fill the water, unless you have an exit or drain, that water is going to stay there. And that has become the problem for Dhaka also because of this flood control embankment. But the biggest problem is, of course, since the independence of Bangladesh, there was an exponential population growth. Currently, is projected to be 21 million, as shown in this graph. And in a small area like Dhaka city, 21 million people is difficult to accommodate. The infrastructure in terms of roads, bridges, and sewer lines, sewer treatment did not keep up with the growth of the population. As you can see, today's Dhaka is a concrete jungle, very little open areas. The paved surface area has increased substantially, and that reduced the infiltration and increased the surface runoff. We have about 4 large storage for the surface, like Dhanmondi Lake has a capacity of 116 million gallons, Gulshan 317 million gallons. And then Crescent Lake 10 million, Ramna Lake 24 million gallons. But unfortunately, 1/3 of the capacity has been lost due to siltation. So additional water is difficult to transmit into those lakes. And as I said, the proud of the drainage systems in Dhaka city used to be those canals. The largest canal is the Dholai Khal, as you can see, 4 kilometers. But look at the situation today. It's a junkyard for the auto parts. And next one is the Shagun Bagicha Khal, 3.5 kilometers. That's also clogged. This is the Dholai Par Canal. As you can see, that it cannot carry any water. It's filled up completely and all the junks and everything is there. This is not operational anymore. This is another canal, Kalibadi Canal. In here, it is more like grabbing the canal, and they build up those sheds or things like that to provide accommodation for the ever exploding population. These are all contributing factor towards the waterlogging. The result, as you can see, there are many, you can look at it. I just shared 2 of those, how the waterlogging problem has become serious. WASA has summarized nicely the causes and what should be done and can be done. As presented in this slide, WASA is Water and Sewer Authority. They were responsible for water and sewer as well as this waterlogging. Out of 360 square kilometers of Dhaka city, only 1/3 has any sewer. Total concrete drains is only 320 kilometers. There are 10 kilometers of box culverts and 65 kilometers of canals today. From 300 to now, ended to 26, and most of them are not operational. So, summarizing, what is the cause of the waterlogging? No storm drain system in most parts of the city. Available drainage system is clogged, mindless filling of canals. And according to WASA, how we can address this problem? The first thing they said that expansion of the drainage system in the city, meaning you have to build up all those storm drains wherever we don't have, which is 2/3 of the city. Then reclaim the canals, which is important. I think the 2 new mayors have started that. Cleaning, of course, the roadside drains, etc. Now, I'll just give you an idea that in order to install all those storm drains along the roads, what it involves. It's not only in Dhaka city, we have area in Queens known as Southeast Queens. And that also gets flooded every time there is a rain. And I was leading the master plan for that area. It is a much smaller area, only 15,000 acres, as you can see. So we designed what we call the drainage plans, provide, surprisingly, 60% of the street doesn't have any sewer lines. So same problem as in Dhaka. Dhaka doesn't have all those storm drains also. So we developed a master plan for small area, 15,000 acres. And when the price tag was added, it was approximately 14 billion with a B dollars just to develop this area. And it will take 30, 40 years. They're slowly doing it, following the master plan. This is what we call is the gray infrastructure, very expensive and time consuming. In order to install this type of things in 2/3 of Dhaka city is going to cost us fortune. So as an alternate, what we are doing in New York City, we have come up with a solution, very innovative solution, which is known as green infrastructure. So what is a green infrastructure? Actually, what green infrastructure does is to mimic the natural condition, like back in 19th century, water could infiltrate into the ground. So we're trying to facilitate that process. So the process is to increase the infiltration, water storage, and that's the way we can do that. As you can, this is the roadway. This is in the sidewalk. We dug up about 5 feet deep. It's about 4 feet wide, and 3 length we have used, 10 feet, 15 feet, and 20 feet. The surface water will enter from this curb cut into there. It will be partly stored or partly infiltrate into the ground. The excess water will exit from the outlet. So this is what, if we can put enough, then we can mitigate the problem of waterlogging. Again, the same thing. The bottom layer is going to, in New York City, we have used stones, but in Dhaka, most likely we'll be using broken bricks, preferably Hama brick, which can absorb more water. Top layer is going to be topsoil, then we can plant, again, shrubs, trees, flowers, like that. Water is entering here, it fills up. When it exceeds the capacity, some infiltrates into the ground, and excess water will overflow into the back. It will reduce the peak of the runoff as well as reduce the volume also. Other things has been done is blue roof, meaning in the roof we can store water. That is exclusively done in Bermuda. They collect all waters for drinking. And the green roof, some of the buildings in Dhaka city, they are doing planting plants or things like that. That will absorb a lot of water. This is one of the ideas also. Now we can use porous paving, as you can see. Instead of concrete slab, we can have all those planters and this and that, then the water can infiltrate into the ground also. We can also use those rain barrels in New York City. The responsibility is with the New York City Environmental Protection Department. They were giving up all these kinds of barrel. If those downspout from the roof is connected there, then you can use that water for gardening also. But in today's presentation, we are going to concentrate only one of the green infrastructures, which is the biosoils. And I will share with you what we have done in the New York City, a case study of that. The goal was to capture first 1 inch or 25 millimeter of rainfall. Impervious area in New York City is about 30% of the gross area. Dhaka city may be a little less. Now, this is the idea of the biosoils. All the surface water from the roadways is entering this biosoil and stored or infiltrated into the ground, and the excess comes out from the outlet. That way we can reduce the peak as well as reduce the volume. That was the goal. Now, in order to install those biosoils, we have to have a site visit and site selection. We don't want it to, we have to avoid all the entrances like the driveways and things like that. We have to avoid bus stops, narrow sidewalks, protecting the existing large trees. Those are all those things we walk down and try to identify that, eliminate all things. Then only we can select the location of the biosoils. As you can see, we are showing, marking up that this is where we can put that bioswale. So once we have identified number of these, then we want to know what is underneath that, utilities. So we conduct a ground penetrating radar survey and see what is underneath that slab. We don't want to interfere with the very expensive items like fiber optics, things like that. We try to avoid that. This is one of the pictures that you could find out from the ground penetrating radar survey. Now, success of a bioswale primarily depends on infiltration, location of the groundwater table, size of the sidewalk, as well as some roadway median. Now, we have been determining the permeability of the underlying soil through boring and falling head permeability test. There is a new innovative idea, and that in New York took at least 1 day for one boring. That's very time consuming. A new idea I have proposed for the New York City DEP is called GeoProbe. We can do 4 boreholes with this instrument much faster, and the cost is 1/4 to 1/3. Also determining the permeability. This hydraulic profile tool, HPT, can determine the permeability of the soil for the entire depth, as opposed to the falling head you can only get. So this is another innovation in the design. Now let's talk a little bit about the permeability. In New York City, they were very conservative. They said, we will not put a bioswale if the percolation rate or infiltration rate is less than 0.125 inch per hour, or 8.8 10 to the power minus 5 centimeter per second is the permeability. If we compare with the great soil engineers like Carl Turag, he is considered the father of soil mechanics. He gives a range much higher. Ralph Peck, his disciple, also gives a range. Gregory Shibot-Earlieff is another great practical geotechnical engineer, gives a range. Based on that, I actually recommended that there should be a range so that we can use the range for the permeability cutoff criteria. I also looked into the infiltration rate of Dhaka city, came from a study by Buet for recharging the groundwater. And the average infiltration was 0.98 centimeter per second, or 2.7 times 10 to the power 4 centimeter per second permeability, which is much better than New York City. So that criteria is completely fulfilled. The other consideration is the groundwater. If it is very high groundwater, of course, those bioswales may not be very effective. But as you know, WASA is supplying the water by groundwater. And the groundwater has depleted in the Dhaka city in the magnitude of 40 meters. This is the diagram shown of today's groundwater. So our bioswale will be within 3 meters. So that will not be affected, which is a good news. Now, the other consideration is that in Dhaka city, we have problems in the sense that we may not have standard sidewalks. In New York City, minimum width of the sidewalk is 8 feet. We can use the bioswale 4 feet and 4 feet for the pedestrian. In Dhaka city, the width of the sidewalks are not regular, and many streets even doesn't have any sidewalk. So what we are going to do in Dhaka city, where there is no sidewalks, there is another design I was involved. I was involved for St. John, it's St. George Terminal in Staten Island. they had the similar problem. We came up with an innovative solution, which is called infiltration basin using rain tanks. So rain tanks are really modular type of, great type of things, very high porosity, 95% porosity, which is good. That can be installed in a basin, and we can divert the water into there, and that will infiltrate into the ground. And this innovative, as I said, project was done for Staten Island, and I presented this paper at the 6th International Perspective on Water Resources and the Environment, held in January 2013 in Izmir, Turkey. So this is another solution we can look into for Dhaka as well. Now, in order to bring the water, we might have to use French drain. It's a very fancy name, but it's very simple. We dig a deep channel. We put the perforated plate, pipes, fill up with gravel. This will collect all the water, then will be transmitted to the infiltration basin. Now, the other things we can do in Dhaka city, particularly in the new roadway areas, they have pretty decent median. And those medians can be used as a large infiltration basin to collect the surface runoff. As you can see here, this is the median, and we can put the infiltration basin for the entire length or width, excluding those. And that could be a very large storage for the surface water. It has got two benefits, is that it will reduce the surface runoff, plus provide the moisture needed for these plants. We just started to do this kind of things in the phase 2 for the New York City. This is the standard design we have developed. We have developed standard design for 3 types, 10 feet length, 15 feet length, and 20 feet length. This is the type 1, 20 feet length. As you can see, that water enters here. Then in the middle, we can put topsoil and the planting. Then on the outlet, if the excess water can get out into the back. These standard designs and drawings are all available. This is the simple construction. You dig up a hole, then bottom 2.5 feet will be filled up with gravel. In our case, probably broken bricks. And sometimes it could be, permeability could be very low. Then we put the sand drains. Just a perforated pipe we fill up with sand or broken stone so that the water can infiltrate, facilitate the infiltrate. Now let me try to, if it works, it will give you the idea of how it, very simple concept. The water from the street is entering through the curb cut into the bioswales, and it is being stored and infiltrates into the ground. And when it exceeds the capacity of individual biocell, then it is returned back to the street again. Very simple concept. We have done model studies and everything, and it does work well. Simple concept, it works very well. Now let me give some conceptual ideas. I looked into a major rainstorm in Dhaka city back in 1996. Continuously for 3 days, it was raining. On the first day, September 16, the intensity of rainfall was 37 millimeter per hour. The second day, 17th, it was 28 millimeter per hour. And on the third day, September 19th, it was 41.5 millimeter per hour. Now, the biosoils I talked about and we are designing in New York City is to capture 1 inch or 25 millimeter per hour. If we do that, then you can just see that what is going to be the remaining runoff, only this purple, only this is the runoff, and these will be captured. So that way you can reduce the surface runoff tremendously and mitigate the waterlogging. Again, volume-wise, this is purely conceptual. I didn't have the number, but this is taken from one of the pictures. So before back in 19th century, when I showed this picture, the surface runoff was much, much smaller volume-wise. Then when all was built up after urbanization, the runoff peaked tremendously, and that is causing the waterlogging. If we can install those biosoils, then the peak will be reduced substantially, will be spread out, and the volume also will be reduced substantially. So the waterlogging will be mitigated quite well. Now, just to summarize, what are the benefits of these biosoils? Number one, reduce the runoff volume. Number two, it will reduce the velocity and the peak flows. Increase the recharge into the groundwater, which we badly need in Dhaka city. And of course, reduce the flooding or waterlogging. These are the benefits of these biosoils. Now, this is not the first time we are doing, and this is, Bangladesh is not going to be a guinea pig. It has been introduced quite some time. And we have been working on this almost 8 years on this innovative design. The first paper I presented in 2014 in Quito, Ecuador. And that was primarily what we did in the New York City. And my co-author was Turag. Those who works in New York City deep, they know him. He is kind of a godfather for the infrastructure. And we worked together to develop all those criteria and everything. Next one was presented at New Orleans. They were also looking into this. Then specifically for the Dhaka city, Alleviate the waterlogging for the Dhaka city, I presented this paper at the 10th International Perspective of Water Resources and the Environment in 2018 in Cartagena, Colombia. The next one was in Dhaka itself in February of 2019. This was the first conference for the expatriate engineers. That was a great presentation on February 26th and 27th. And as I understand, our Dhaka North City Corporation Mayor, Honorable Atikul Islam, was supposed to chair this conference, but because of the mayoral election, he couldn't make it. The last one I presented for BDI, which is Bangladesh Development Initiative. They had this conference in Yale University back in March 2019. So this is not new. It is pretty much proven concept. Now, we got pretty good coverage, like Prothomalo had a front page featured article. Then Bangladesh Pratidin had a back page article on the Yale presentation. So, but again, I don't think it was presented to the key people, the decision maker. Nobody reads the newspapers and calls. and wants to know about it. So that's one of the area we have to concentrate. As you know, since last month, the responsibility of Dhaka's drainage management was transferred to the city corporations. It is no longer with WASA and Water Development Board. They took the full responsibility. And Dhaka Water Supply and Sewage Authority has handed over responsibility of Dhaka drainage system, consisting of 26 canals, 10-kilometer box culverts, and 385 kilometers of storm drains. Dhaka South City Corporation Mayor Barrister Sheikh Fazli Noor Taposh and Dhaka North City Corporation Mayor Atikul Islam expressed their commitments to deal with the canal first. We have, just to quote Barrister Taposh, we have already taken a crash program to clean canals and box culvert, which is necessary, of course. Now, once we clean up all the canals and everything, then the water will be collected into that canal. And before, it used to transmit directly into the surrounding rivers. Now we have a problem. We build those embankments enclosing the Dhaka city. Now these canals cannot directly discharge into the surrounding rivers. And that has created the problem I already explained earlier. Right now, what they're doing is that there are 4 large pumping stations. These are the 4 pumping stations that is pumping the water on top of the embankment. And that is, these are the 4 large pumping stations, Narinda 150,000 GPM, Kullanpur 158,000, Confluence of Buriganga and Dhulaikal 349,000, and Goran Chandbari 349,000 GPM. This sounds very large number, but this is absolutely adequate considering the total surface runoff. And this solution is extremely expensive also. This is the idea. This is if you bring the canal, if the river water is low, then of course you can discharge the water through directly into the river. But when the river level is high, of course, you have to close the sluice gate and you have to pump the water into the river. And that has been proven to be inadequate grossly. Now, we looked into this problem. I was involved in 2 such design. Instead of, we all know historically the operation and the sluice gate, the track record is not that great in Bangladesh. So this is one of the concepts where the gate is operated by water. This is hydraulically operated, no manual operation, no push button closer and opening. This simply works with the water. When the water level in the river is low, then the canal water will push up the gate and the water will be released into the water. When the water is high, this will automatically, the water will automatically close it. No other operation. And it works perfectly. I have used this concept in Hingham Bay in Massachusetts and Huntington Bay in New York. This is could be a good solution to look into. Again, getting back to the current situation, Barrister Taposh promises that there will be a master plan to solve the waterlogging, which is the right way to proceed. Then, of course, we have a mayor from the Dhaka North City Corporation. Everybody is worried about the encroachment of those canals. And let me quote him, "No encroachers will be spared." That is going to be tough, but that is what is needed to reclaim those canals. So what can I do? As an expert here at Bangladesh, I would like to help as much as I can. So this is my commitment to the authorities. Currently, it is going to be Dhaka City Corporations, that I'd be glad to serve as an advisor to the Dhaka City Corporations. As you probably know, I have served as the advisor to the Joint River Commission for 5 years until the Ganges Water Treaty was signed. Currently, I'm serving as the advisor for the Atomic Energy Commission, Bangladesh, providing advices. I can go to Dhaka, conduct workshop with the Bangladeshi consultants and contractors regarding this innovative design and construction. I can provide all the standard drawings we have developed for these biosoils, provide the specifications, and we also conducted, my company conducted a 6 years research project to deep all the problems, and we have developed a manual that could be made available to the authorities also. So this is, as an expert yet Bangladeshi, I can do at practically no cost to the government of Bangladesh. Alternately, of course, they can hire US firms. Those are very experienced in these biosoils. I just identified 10 of them. I have coordinated or worked with them as a pioneer on this field. Those engineering firms includes Arcadis, AKRF, Arup, Dewberry, Hazen and Swear, HDR, KS Engineering. Kamal Shahid was supposed to attend. I don't know whether he is there. He is the president of KS Engineering, Stantec, STV, and WSP. I have working relationship with all of them. If Dhaka City Corporation wants to hire any one of them, I can facilitate that. I can help them procuring their services. But obviously, it's not going to be cheap because the fees are pretty high. Now, everybody wants to know how much it costs. That's the interesting point. Okay, let's see how much it costs. This is the average cost of one bioswale of 400 cubic feet or 3,000 gallons storage capacity. Design fee was $3,000. Geotechnical investigation, meaning individual borings for each, was costing us $3,000 and also time consuming. This can be cut down with the new concept I presented. GPR survey was costing $300 and the survey was costing $700. Altogether, design fee was $1,000 and the construction cost was $15,000 to $20,000. But this is in New York City. If we do the same thing in Dhaka City, my estimation the cost will be between 1/3 to 1/4, because this is labor incentive, digging a hole, filling up with coarse materials, and putting the topsoil and planting. So our contractors can do it much cheaper. I expect that the cost in the city will be 1/3 or 1/4, which is the most cost-effective solution. We have looked into all kinds of solution for mitigation, and this comes out to be the most cost-effective. Now, from the website, I just saw that the Dhaka South City Corporation has a budget for 2021 of 765 million, and Dhaka North City Corporation has a yearly budget of 2020 to 2021, 563 million. So I have suggested that we build about, in New York City, we build about 10,000, 9,000 has been completed. And if we build about 10,000 of biosoils in Dhaka City, then the cost is 6% of the annual budget, which is not much. And of course, for the water mitigation, they're going to get additional budget as well. So cost should not be a problem to solve this problem. Now let me try to conclude. The first thing we said, the filling of the canal system, construction of the flood control embankment, and inadequate sewer system are the main causes of waterlogging. So we have to address one at a time. Reclamation of the canals and the construction of the proper drainage system will require a lot of money, but canal cleaning up is much more effective than building up those sewer system. I already told you, in a small area of 15,000 acre in New York City was costing about $40 billion. As an interim solution, we can build about 10,000 of biosoils at a cost of roughly $100 million. And this can be constructed fastest if we go 3 years, and leisurely we go 5 years, costing between 25 million to 35 million per year, which is should not be a big problem. 10,000 biosoils will manage about 50 million gallons of water, either through storage or through infiltration. That is a tremendous volume of surface runoff, and that we can do. In New York City, we are managing 54 million gallons of water with 10,000 biosoils. So the biosoils should be a part of the master plan to alleviate the waterlogging in Dhaka City. Mayor Barrister Taposh already said we are putting together a master plan, and this concept should be the centerpiece of the master plan. That is what I think and my recommendation. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged to present this paper to you. I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, next, I think we'll be open to the question and answer. This cartoon says, yes, everything is clogged and flooded. Please don't tell anybody. Do you have any question? Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question, if I can ask.
Can't hear you. You have to speak clearly so that.
I'm sorry. I have a question.
Sure.
For the bioswale, how will you prevent pollution, like pollutant materials carried by the surface water from impacting the plant quality and the quality of the groundwater, especially in like busy cities where there's a lot of pollutants entering the surface water? So what would the impact be?
Well, if I may interrupt a little bit. So please hold on your thoughts, and sorry, sorry, Sufyan Bhai.
Yeah.
We want to get an update from Azad.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then we'll go to the Q&A. So all of you probably know Azad already. Azadul Haq is associated with many activities about Bangladesh. For example, a Bangladesh Rising program at Harvard, and he did the CONE conference in Dhaka. But I will let Azad say in his own words, including messages from Mayor Atik. Azad, floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sufyan Bhai, for a wonderful presentation. This is really an eye-opening talk. And I have seen that in Cone. I have read that paper in details, which we have actually published in our Cone conference paper as well. I did talk to Mayor Atikul Islam yesterday. He called and he apologized that he has a meeting in the ministry, so he couldn't join himself, but he told us to go ahead, and I told him that we will set up a separate meeting for him and his CEO and his engineers so that they can have a in-depth talk about this one. I told them this is actually about you, not about us. So we would like to present this to you. So we can definitely, he's very much reachable at any time. We can reach him. If you guys come to Bangladesh, definitely at that time or even any other time, virtually we can connect. And if I may take only a few minutes, if you don't mind, I made some comments because, I'm the chairman of B2B or Bridge to Bangladesh. This is an organization that connects people like this, people like Sufyan Bhai and Anish Bhai and others to Bangladesh through the government, through the businesses, just to build a bridge. When you have a solution, my organization, our organization actually translates that to how to make it a reality. And that was part of one of the Cone convention that we did. We are looking for implementable solution. So if I may just touch a few points, because I would really like to see a project like this to be implemented in Bangladesh. There was some talk about right of way, because Bangladesh is one of the major problems is space. It's very crowded city. It's difficult to find any space. Walkways, even if there are, you will not be able to work because there are a lot of people always walking, especially in the city area. So I'm just going to touch a few points since this is being recorded so we can go back later on. First of all, it does not have to be limited to Dhaka city. Bangladesh is not about Dhaka city. We need to think about from a country's point of view and think about 30, 40, 50 years from now. Like the picture that Sufyan Bhai had shown about Dhaka in the early 50s. If we had such a program at that time, or have walkways and footpaths and biosols or even concept of biosols at that time, today we would not be having this problem. We cannot go back in time, but we can definitely do something today that will impact the future generation 50 years from now. So my suggestion would be, and I'll be happy to facilitate that, Bangladesh is building 99 economic zone around the country, starting from the Bangabandhu Shilpanagar in Mirasharai. There are thousands of hectares of land being used for business purposes, economic zone. They will also need a biosols or waterlogging problem today. If they don't allocate those space now, eventually when people will invest billions of dollars, those areas will be waterlogged and they will have a serious business impact. So it could be presented to BEZA. Mr. Pawan Chaudhary is the BEZA chairman, and I'll be happy to introduce to him, because those are still being constructed. So if you want to have that plan built into the economic zone as a part of their master plan, then this can have a much bigger impact than just the Dhaka city or Chittagong city. That's number one. Second, as you know, in Dhaka city, they're building the metro rail. So when the metro rail is passing, everybody talks about not having any space within the city, but metro rail is a reality. In 2022, they will open the metro rail. So as the metro rail passed through the city, they have taken the right of way. Under the metro rail area, through their pillars, there are huge space that will be left unutilized. People will not be able to drive, walk, or anything. So this is the right time to engage with the city corporation to claim those areas right of way under the metro rail and start building this biosource, because that's a large area within the city. It's like a bypass surgery through the city, and you can especially in the Mirpur area and other area, if those spaces can be converted to biosource, you can take out a large number of water out of it. And then we have some of the satellite cities are being built, as you know, Purvachal and Rupnagar, some of those. So the concept of biosols can be introduced into those new cities. But I think one of the things that Sufyan Bhai had mentioned, which is the last slide, how really to do this. I think best way would be to have somebody on the ground, like Sufyan Bhai, as an advisor to the mayor and to LGRD government, so that this concept gets into the master plan. This is not a one-off. This is not something that you can come to Dhaka and for 2 weeks stay here and implement. It needs to be embedded in the mindset of the government, the local government, not really the government, and really to slowly change that. And if you work with the government, you'll understand that things move pretty slow. It doesn't happen overnight. But if you plant the seed today, and if you are in the right place at the right time, things can happen. And I'd be happy to facilitate some of them, introduce you to the right places. Finance is not a problem. Expertise, technology transfer is not a problem, because all of you who are joining here from ABIA have the same mindset, otherwise you wouldn't be here, is to help Bangladesh. We are for Bangladesh. We want to help Bangladesh through technology transfer, through our knowledge transfer, our intellectual or any other form or fashion. We want to help Bangladesh. So I don't see there is any shortage of expertise. Bangladesh is no longer the same Bangladesh that we knew before. Bangladesh can finance programs like this. $50 million, $100 million project is not a big deal for Bangladesh nowadays. But the challenge is to avoid any kind of a corruption, especially those of us who are coming from abroad. This is one of the problems that we face. Some of those good ideas gets crushed because of corruption. So we need to protect those ideas and go to the right place, the decision makers, and people like, Dr. Sufyan Khandekar, if he comes in and presents himself to the government, they would be happy to take him as an advisor. After that, things should be different, because now they don't have to go to a webinar or some kind of a program to understand what this is about. So slowly, government will be reaching out to him to actually do that. So I just touched a whole bunch of things very quickly, because I know it's pretty busy. Everybody's busy time. But please understand that this is the right time. This is the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh 2021. If we want to do something for Bangladesh, that would impact the Bangladesh for 2041. This is the time to introduce those this year. I'm talking about 2021, to start something this year so that it can benefit a large amount of people. So in a conclusion, please do not think Dhaka city only. Think about Chittagong, think about Khulna, think about Borishal, think about other growing cities, include the economic zones, and think about the whole Bangladesh. Then and only then, you don't have to worry about your 10,000 biosols. It could be 100,000 biosols. And the cost could be far reduced if the numbers are larger. Then you can have that, with the local technology, it can be done. A survey and other things are very easy to do in Bangladesh. We can have a separate company. We can have, foreign experts coming from, abroad, or local, engineers can build that very easily. So thank you so much for your opportunity. This was I learned a lot, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
With permission from Anis Rahman, I would like to recognize my good friend and great water resources engineers of Bangladesh, Dr. Ainun Nishat, to say a couple of words. Nishat.
It would be wonderful if he would like to say a few things.
Nishat, you must be in mute. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, please, your comments will be appreciated.
Assalamu alaikum, Sufyan Bhai. I joined a little bit late, so I missed first part of your presentation. I hope I'll be able to get a copy of your presentation. Going back, the main problem is to clean up the canals. At one time, we heard there are 57 canals. Earlier, we knew there are 42, 43. One has been opened up by the local community in the northern side near airport area, because the whole canal had vanished, and result was there was no drainage. So the main challenge would be get the area, the land for the canals. If some of you must be reading the newspapers of Bangladesh, you'll see a road is being cleared in Mirpur that was under occupation for last 43 years. And the governments after government tried to clear it up, and it was occupied by the, use the word Biharis. They simply occupied a 70 feet wide road and made it a 20 feet small lane. So once the space for the drainage system can be cleared, then design is not a problem. There has been the two municipalities, Dhaka South and Dhaka North, especially the South Mayor, Taposh. His predecessor was quite active in trying to open up the drainage system, especially in the D&D area, Dhaka Narayanganj Damra area. If there is some small rainfall, the whole area gets waterlogged. The whole area, which was essentially, Sufyan Bhai, when you were working with Water Board, in the 60s, that was taken as a pilot area for designing, for not really raising the land, but filling up the opening inside the river from Dhaka to Narayanganj and Dhaka to Damra, and then connecting Damra with Narayanganj. A polder was created. It existed as a road, but they put some regulators in space of the culverts. It had worked well. It was basically for agriculture to supply vegetable and other thing to the city. Now it is part of the city, and the whole area has been urbanized. And starting from say June, July, August, September, the whole area is waterlogged. So the previous mayor, he tried to, shall I say, I had several meetings with him, and my point was, okay, let me rephrase. They have one pump station, so they are planning for 4 more pump stations. My comment was the pump station would not help us unless the water reaches the pump station. So that was the main problem. But that mayor also, shall I say, renovated a number of parks, the open space that are still there. And one architect, his name is Rafiq Azam, he designed the drainage system around the park with the bottom open, filled up with gravels and brick chips, which is like the idea that you are using in New York. So it is working on well. So I can show you there have been some mini pilot type projects already functioning in Bangladesh. So your idea is very much welcome. But question is, we know that we have to bail the cat, but who is going to bail it? That is the main problem. The government has the power, they have the authority, but essentially it is the government, the political parties, main workers are the main culprit who occupy the, encroach on the canal. And these political party leaders, they do not belong to Awami League or BNP. They are always with the power. So they keep on changing their party affiliation to be with the party in power. So it will be a big challenge. Mr. Taposh is known to be very aggressive. So if he has the determination, he can do it. The whole thing was started by the previous mayor of Dhaka North, who unfortunately died, and he was courageous to clean up some of the roads for traffic. Waterlogging is a major problem. Well, if you believe in the future projections under climate change, the real bad days are ahead. This year in Rangpur, we had 443 millimeters of rainfall in one day. So with 100 millimeters of rainfall in one day, 30–40% of Dhaka gets waterlogged. With 400 millimeters or 500 millimeters, possibly the Prime Minister would have to come to office in a boat. So yes, we do not like that. The richest people live in the highest part of the city, which is Gulshan, Baridhara and Bonani and DOHS and others. But common people would definitely suffer. The old town would definitely suffer. And there are a lot of low-lying pockets. So with help of, the engineers of the two parts of Dhaka city, you can find out the drainage route. This idea that was just floated, Azadul Haq, to construct the drainage system below the metro system, metro rail, is definitely an innovative idea, but we have to look into the topography. I will finish my discussion with just one point. Dhaka is not flat or is not sloped in one direction. Dhaka is like a turtle to me. Dhaka has a backbone starting from Buriganga Bridge number 1. You come to the starting point of Hanif Setu, Hanif Bridge, overbridge, and then come by the new, is called Bisho Road, come to Tongi through the airport road. It is sloping on the east side of it, sloping on the south side of it, sloping on the west side of it. So it's sloping on 3 sides. And the central part is the highest part. And the northern part, from Tongi up to even Mymensingh, is like the, for the turtle is like the head. So it is, that is high up, but then it is sloping on 3 sides. So the drainage system must take into consideration the topographic constraint, and then we can work on it. Data is available, topographic data is available, but somebody really wants to have to sit down. Maybe in the canal system which Sufyan Bhai has proposed, we may have to have some booster points at certain, booster pumps at certain points, because it's not going to drain out naturally unless we help the drainage system to operate. The polders, the present polder on the western side is not a problem. There are pump stations available and they are functioning as of today. If the Goran Chandbari pump station was not functioning, then half of Pallavi and Mirpur and even up to Adabor and others would go underwater every time there is a heavy rainfall. And the water, the city is surrounded by 6 river networks. So that can also be used conveniently. So the topographic factors has to be taken into account along with opening up the canal system. Thank you very much. And Sufyan Bhai, it was an honor to listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishat. By the way, Nishat and I normally sit as a panelist for Voice of America. Now, the next one is for QA session.
Right, so we have about half an hour or so. So may I request everyone, if you have a question, please unmute yourself, ask the question as opposed to giving a statement. So that our speaker or anyone else knowledgeable on the topic and Azad can answer your question. So, we want to accommodate each and every one of you for asking question.
Anis Bhai, can I just make a comment or a question, please?
Question, please.
Please, can I test something? That lady, Sharmeen, she was the question first.
Yeah,
Can you give her a chance, please?
Let me try to answer that question first.
Right.
Because she asked that question. That,
Yeah.
okay. The beauty of this biosoil is that this works as a filter system. The composition of the biosoils is that we have a topsoil, then you have a coarse material like stones, have a filter fabric, or commonly known in Bangladesh as a geotextile. So the water coming from the street, going through the biossoil is completely filtered.
Okay.
That is going to recharge your groundwater. That groundwater is not contaminated. So that's one of the additional bioswales.
I have a question.
Please.
Sivan bhai, thank you very much. First of all, your nice presentation. I hope that this will be helpful for Bangladesh. But I think some of us were doing the mistake that it is not going to be implemented today, or what is the situation? Rather, I hope the way Azad was just telling in future, it should be implemented. So in other cities, explosion or the proliferation of the population of Bangladesh is so much, in 50 years, all the cities will be crowded. So there should be a master plan. And like other cities, you know, the utility should be designed first. That should be constructed. And all the, other buildings and everything will be constructed. So I hope it's beautiful. In future, it will be very helpful. But my question to you, bioswale is, I believe, is not available at this point in South Dhaka. Only on the developed areas, because there is no sidewalk even. And moreover, the way bioswale should be protected, we people are not motivated. So protect those bioswale is very difficult, I believe, personally. And to talk about the design of New York City, the design you want to transfer it, of course, it's to be transformed. Can you give me one example from your worldwide experience? Precipitation high like Bangladesh, like Southeast Asia, like Vietnam, Cambodia, or Thailand, where the precipitation is very high. Is there any other way to facilitate this water, surface run water?
Okay, so shall we let Sufyan Bhai to answer?
Okay, thank you, Rajak. Protection of bioswales, even in New York City, is problematic. People throw all the cans and plastics and everything, and New York City Department of Environmental Protection has a crew of maintenance operator. They clean it up. If bioswale is not the solution, and many places it is not going to be, particularly in old Dhaka, we have no sidewalk. In those cases, we have to think about the infiltration basin that can be constructed right underneath the roadway.
I think that is the best alternative.
With a porous paving, you can install that. You can install on the side. So it is not, one thing is not going to fit everything. So customize the thing where you have no sidewalk, you put the infiltration basin into the roadway. That can be done. I think Khalek wanted to ask a question or make comment.
Yes, Sufyan bhai.
Sure. Oh, one second. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Forgive me. We have quite a few questions came in the chat box. If I may just take one at a time, please. And yeah, Khalkujaman Bhai is also welcome to ask question. But first we have from Professor Mehdi Anwar of UConn at Stores, Connecticut. His question is, how will quality of groundwater be impacted by introducing the green solution, meaning bioswales, address runoff from treated road surface?
Can you repeat the question? I just
So how will quality of groundwater be impacted by introducing the biosoil and a solution to address runoff from treated road surface?
Yeah, that's exactly what I just answered to Sharmin's question, was similar. The thing is that each individual bioswale is actually works as a filter. It is a filter, as you can see. We have a topsoil, we have a coarse material, you have a geotextile at the bottom. So when the water comes from the top, goes through those 3 layers into the groundwater, it is basically filtered all the suspended materials. In terms of chemical, of course, that's a different story. So it is a filtration, mini filtration plant for surface debris and contaminants. But anything hazardous is in the solution that has to be treated separately. But I don't expect, because Bangladesh does not use any salt to melt the snow. So that is not a problem in Bangladesh.
Okay, now let's take question from Professor Khalquzzaman.
Yes. Thank you, Sufyan Bhai. I have seen your presentation obviously before. If you remember, I was at Yale University where you made that presentation. So this is good to see it again. But if you remember, I had a couple of concerns even then at Yale University. Concern in the sense that obviously the green infrastructure is good. They're always welcome. Least impact development is the way to go these days, lead. And your proposal is obviously not completely new, right? You can find them in any environmental book. My question is, Dhaka city has about 70 to 80% concrete cover. So, you know, it's so densely populated, and land parcel is so scarce and so expensive. You know, have you done any calculation or in terms of, you know, modeling? So how much, you know, available area is there to create those bioswale, for number one? Because to me, you know, it is not feasible in the sense that the area, the open area or area available is simply not there in Dhaka, number one. Number two is the geology, because the Dhaka geology is very different, right? The top layer is Madhupur clay, which is not pervious. So putting those river, you know, the rain tanks or the bioswale, you will not get that kind of infiltration that you are projecting what you will get in Queens, for example. So the Dhaka geology is different.
Let's have answer from Sufyan Bhai, please.
Okay.
Two questions.
Basically, if I understood correctly, that
yeah, first to do the feasibility, whether you have the enough open spaces in Dhaka to do that. Yeah. And second is the geology will not allow you the infiltration that you are projecting.
Okay, let me answer those two questions. I think in the presentation I tried to answer. This first phase, we only concentrated the sidewalks or median of the roadway. So those spaces are available. And I also just mentioned that if none of them is available, we can install those infiltration basin under the roadway. It is going to be a little interruptive, but that can be done. The second question, I already explained very clearly that there has to be a minimum infiltration rate. In New York City, we established 0.125 inch per hour. From a study I just mentioned by Buet, I think it was recently, for the recharging of the groundwater in Dhaka city, the average infiltration rate, average, that is the keyword, is 0.39 inch per hour, more than the cutoff for the New York City. So yes, some places it is going to be very low. We may not be able to get an infiltration, but still these are going to serve as a small storage. Each has a capacity of 3,000 gallons. At least we can store that 3,000 gallons and reduce this peak, and that will be beneficial. But again, yeah, to encourage the infiltration, we have to know the infiltration rate.
Anish bhai, আমি একটা question আছে.
Okay, one second, please. So I'm taking one from audience and one from the chat box, right? Please allow me to do that. So the next question came from SK Amjad Hussain. And his question is, waterlogging is major problem, not only in Dhaka city. Bangladesh is in transitional process of state city like Singapore. Immediate master drainage plan is needed, both at local and national. I would say the seminar has great importance to Bangladesh. Thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead with your question. So there was no question here. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
I'm Mohammed Sadiq. I was one of the participants of Cone Convention, and I had the similar concept project. Was my topics was design and construction of bioswale in Dhaka city and other towns of Bangladesh. So Ajad Bhai, I believe you know about that, right? Okay, so thank you, Sufyan Khondokar. It's a wonderful presentation. I worked for DP, Department of Design and Construction. During that time, I did thousands of bioswale. That's why my participation was there. But New York City, the basic concept for bioswale is the CSO, like combined sewer outfall of the particular catch basin. So they first find out the outfall sewer outfall area, how much you're going to go. On basis, they're going to design the catch bioswale. This is the one of the concept. I don't know about the Bangladesh. They have a catchment area, CSO, what their target, what the value, I don't know. But when I was there, I met in the Washa chairman during the convention. The main problem of Dhaka city is a storm sewer is run by one agency, sanitary sewer is run by the different agency. There is no combination together. And the chairman was told there is no way to make this kind of bioswale. If that both agencies are work together, then we can have a pilot project. So this is the concept we have to think about. During the week, Ajaz Bhai told we have to go long run and we have to find out all the things. Another issue that Sarmin, that lady, she told me, she was telling about that contamination. New York City has a big issue of, we are the sponsor for bioswale. When I was in DDC, we noticed the peoples are objecting not to have a bioswale. The contamination, the oil has to go through with some toxic materials. So this is a very sensitive issue will be in future, especially in the Dhaka city. But other urban town, they have no problem. But the city, the congestion city of type, you have to think about all this.
Okay.
Sufyan and Ajad.
Okay, Mohammed Sadiq Bhai. So since I think Azad is under a little bit pressure of time, so Azad, would you like to respond to this question, and then we can listen to from Sufyan?
Yes, I mean, one thing is, I think you already know, I think Sufyan Bhai already covered. The LGRD ministry already identified that there are multiple ownership, and that was one of the key issue why things are not being solved. So there is a new law being proposed, and I believe it has already passed, that the canals and the waterlogging problem will be the responsibility of the city corporation. So that is out. We don't have to talk about that. It's the law has already been passed. But my request is, don't think Dhaka only. Bangladesh is not Dhaka only. So it may not be possible to do it Dhaka, but that does not mean bioswale is not feasible for Bangladesh. Think about Rajshahi. Think about Borishal. If you take this to those mayors, pick out a kilometer or two as a pilot project, and then do it in Sylhet, Borishal, and other, Rajshahi and Khulna and those cities, then you don't really have to have a webinar. You can tell people, come and see how Borishal is doing. That will open up the ideas, very quickly. I'll give you one idea. I don't know if you guys are aware of Mr. Mustafiz. He just became the land secretary. He was the PD for A2I during Cone time. He was, we worked very closely. He was the PD at time, and then he became the divisional commissioner of Sylhet. So he went to Sylhet. Within 3 to 4 months, he took a particular road and he cleared all the overhanging electrical cables and brought it underground. It's already done. And that in Sylhet city, that particular area is an icon for the people in Sylhet. So it opened up a lot of eyes that yes, it can be done provided people have the interest and provided people have the will. Well, because of his good work, he became the Divisional Commissioner of Dhaka and recently been promoted to the Land Secretary. So there are people who can actually influence to create some of this pilot program. In Dhaka, it might be 100 times more challenge, and that should be the final frontier. You can start doing it somewhere else, which is much easier. They have a large, footpath or walkways, and you can have plants. You can have local native plants to do that. And I'm sure people like in Rajshahi, Khulna, Borishal, and other cities would be very, very happy to accommodate you and welcome you more than taking up the big one, Dhaka city, in the very first one. That's just my comment. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. Rajshahi is one of the top 10 cleanest city in the world. And they have already done a lot of electrical cabling under the ground. So yeah, it's very doable and very feasible. But Mohammed Sadiq Bhai has a point, particularly for Dhaka. And Sufyan Bhai, want to say something on this?
Yeah, in New York City, 60% of the sewer system is a combined sewer. That means sanitary as well as surface runoff is together. That's why there is a problem of CSO, combined sewer overflow. And that was the trigger point for all this work, because in order to treat all the combined sewer is hundreds of billions of dollars. So finally, EPA approved New York City Department of Environmental Protection that if you guys prove it that this green infrastructure can do the work, then we are willing to accept that, because they had a penalty of $800 million for violating the CSO rule. So that's a different story. In Dhaka city, I don't have the breakdown. They have such a limited amount of sewer system. It doesn't really matter that it is not carrying much water to begin with, but ideally it should be a separate system. Sanitary should be treated before discharge, and surface runoff could be discharged directly to rivers.
Okay, so next question from the chat box is from Ms. Sarah Tasneem. And she is saying, thank you, Dr. Khandekar, for such an informative talk. Is it possible to construct the green infrastructure in the divider placed between the lanes of a road to divide the traffic moving in opposite directions?
Absolutely. That's one of the ideal things I said. We can utilize the median and build a big infiltration basin. And we can collect the water from both sides of the street into those median. And that will have two benefits. It will serve as a very large volume infiltration basin, plus it will provide the water for the plants and trees. It serves two purposes. In each and every median in Dhaka city, they should consider this concept. This will be an ideal solution. In one of the slides, I already explained how it can be done.
Yeah, I just noticed it later. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's take one from the audience again, please.
Anis bhai, assalamu alaikum. আমি একটা কোশ্চেন জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারি?
Sure, please go ahead.
So আনিস ভাই, আমার একটা কোশ্চেন হলো প্রথমে যেটা Ajad bhai, what he says that we should think outside also Dhaka. So honestly, I don't know much about the biosol except today. I was learning and doing some research where we see that to build the biosol, if we go for some pilot project in Dhaka, especially residential area, I've seen that it costs probably $3 to $5 per square feet. So if you're making a biosol in the residential area, it might cost $2,000 to $3,000. So if we can do a couple of pilot POC in Dhaka, that's the one way we can talk to the governments if we are successful. Secondly, this biosol has some like a disadvantage, especially for Bangladesh. I would bring one thing. we know that if there's a left water is there, then mosquito is coming. And we are already struggling with the mosquito. I think there is one of the country in the world where dengue, probably there is some other countries there.
So
Dengue
please
is one
ask
of the
your
big-
question. Please ask your question.
So question is, the third one, sorry, there's multiple questions. Another one is the IoT. I'm not sure whether we are using the IoT, even though in New York City, we see that the sewer systems are still they're struggling because of it's a manual traditional process. They're maintaining a lot of areas from the Department of Environmental. So if we want to develop something for Bangladesh, we should have industry 4.0, whatever is advised and get the suggestions. Under the smart city, we should add the IoT. I believe there is no IoT I have seen in the presentation. Might be it is there, I might miss it. But if it is not there, can we add that?
Okay, so let me make just one quick
answer very
statement.
quickly whatever I understood. First of all,
No, but the point is that, look, when an expert is giving his or her expert opinion, you and I should respect that and ask a question as opposed to bringing, that kind of statements, etc. Anyway, Sufyan, would you like to respond?
yeah, the one question came up, if I understood that ponding of water and concern of dengue. When I talked about the infiltration rate, the cutoff infiltration rate is 0.125 inches per hour. That determines that whatever water is collected in this bioswale will be infiltrated into the groundwater, into the underlying soil within 24 hours. That was the criteria. So the ponding is not going to be 3 days, 10 days, 7 days. It is designed for 24 hours. So there is no question of having a mosquito breeding in those dead water plots. So that was one of the key design criteria. And in terms of test projects, yes, you can do hundreds of test projects in Bangladesh, no problem with that, but we have done it here. So what else you are going to get there?
Thank you so much, Sufyan Bhai. Thanks for
All right,
answering.
so let's move on to the next question from on the chat, in the chat box from Parvez Bhai. Is more of a comment, which is, unfortunately, there have been lots of Dhaka city master plan over the years. Alas, none of those are properly implemented. I wouldn't hold my breath on what people promise. But next question from engineer Bhajan Sarkar. Where the space will come from? Just think about the Motijheel area and others who will maintain drains in Dhaka city, create a lot of problems and work like garbage bins. Bioswales would create another problem in Dhaka. We already have discussed that. Next question from.
Can I ask a question, please? So this is Bhajan Sarkar.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kondrukar. Nice to meet you again. We came out crossover in our last presentation in the conference, I think, and I would like to thank my beloved teacher, Dr. Anil Nishad sir. I see him after 33 years. Thank you, sir. And as an expert of, not the expert, working expert in this field, I am working for more than 18 years in Canada. And now I am the head of a master plan of water, wastewater, and stormwater in the city of Hamilton. So city of Hamilton is one of the oldest city in Canada, and 45% of our drainage system is combined system. So the bioswale is not working in a combined system area. We build a lot of bioswales in the combined systems. Efficiency of the bioswales over the years will be decreasing a lot by lacking of proper maintenance. And so bioswale is very efficient in a separated systems. It's my opinion and my practical experiences. And other thing is that biosol and that kind of problem is only the source control. But there is a lot of solutions to control the sources. One of the main outcome of these biosoils is the groundwater recharging. But we can easily maintain that groundwater recharging very coordinated way, not by biosoils like a Dhaka city. And the second thing is that there is another way to control or the waterlogging by introducing dynamic systems like in real-time control, decision support systems. And you know that in the Dhaka city, drainage is a main problem of waterlogging now. So if we know our inline storage, and if we know that how much water we have to control, and other thing, sir, Dr. Anunisha sir has properly mentioned that Dhaka city should have identified their level of services, because nobody can control the mother nature. Dhaka City Corporation will not control the flood. They have to control the flood within a level of services. They have to commit it to the taxpayers, to the service providers.
Okay, so let's have answer from Sufyan Bhai or Azad if you wish to.
First of all, that all the biosoils in the New York City, total of 10,000 has been installed as of today. All are in the combined system. So I do not agree with the idea that biosoils are good for separate system, not for the combined system. And so that is a misunderstanding. It is, and it does the filtration I explained because of the composition of the surface, not the solution. So those are the benefits of the right-of-way biosol. Yeah, the source control. What is the source control? You cannot control the rain. The source of waterlogging is the rain that is going to come, and it is going to increase because of the climate change. So we cannot control that source. So we have to mitigate with the limited resources we have. This is one of the tools that can be utilized, most cost effective, we found out. We can build up $1 billion waste treatment plant. We can build up all the storm sewer separate system costing another $30–40 billion in Dhaka city. We are talking about cost-effective solution to get similar result.
আমি কি একটা প্রশ্ন করতে পারি?
What was that? I didn't.
আমি একটা প্রশ্ন করতে পারি? Thank you very much. আপনার presentation was excellent. It was extremely informative. এখানে আমার প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে যে most of the time this will be a policy decision with good engineering. Professor Anunisha স্যার যেটা বললেন আর কি, সেটা হচ্ছে মানে এখানে একটা ইস্যু হচ্ছে আপনার canal reclamation, আর একটা হচ্ছে আপনার engineering solution to address water clogging. এখন আমার যদি একটা policy decision নিতে হয় with you being an advisor, তাহলে আমি কোন কাজটা আগে করব? water cloggingটা আগে দেখব, this particular technology, নাকি আমি ক্যানালটা reclaim করার চেষ্টা করব আগে?
That's a good question. As I understand, the reclamation of the canals, there is nothing wrong to have this parallel work. Reclamation of canal and installation of the bioswale could be in parallel. Reclamation of the canals will definitely help, and that is the priority for the current Dhaka city corporations. Both of them has committed, and they have committed that we have already started with vigorously. That is a component we have to look into. But reclaiming the canal, we also have to look into how to discharge those accumulated water through the canal into the surrounding river. That's another solution they have to solve together. That is an independent solution. Biosoils are small, cost-effective solution. It is collecting the surface water and infiltrating into the ground that will benefit the recharging of the groundwater, which has depleted tremendously in Dhaka city because of pumping water indiscriminately to supply the drinking water. So in my opinion, both can work together. Which one will be faster? We don't know, depending on the emphasis. But the master plan should identify both as a key components and work in parallel.
Okay, so shall we take the next question? Next one is from Shamsul Siddiqui Bhai to everyone. Seems like a win-win situation, which will solve the waterlogging problem at the same time, will also recharge the ground. This will also solve the arsenic problem caused by low groundwater level caused by deep tube wells. So there was no question. The next question is from Qazi Ahmed to everyone. Only way the canals can stay canals for years to come if we can turn them into an economic device through private-public partnership. If those canals can be turned into water parks, routes to transport goods and people, then they will remain canals. Otherwise, the demand for land will ruin the canals today or tomorrow. What's your opinions? Sufyan Bhai, please.
Again, canal was originally established in Dhaka city to convey the surface water. If it can be used as the transportation also, that is well and good. I think in one area, I'm not pretty sure, I should not really comment, in Hafiz Hill area, they have done something like that to utilize it in other way also. Definitely these canals can be used for transportation as well. But again, those are the decision has to come from the policymaker that how they want to utilize the canal. The main purpose will be to collect the surface water and transmit the water into the surrounding river. That is the purpose of the canal. Additional benefits is welcome.
Okay, so let's take another question from the audience, please.
Anis bhai, ami ki question korte pari ekta?
Absolutely, please go ahead.
Faisal Kader bolchilam. Thank you so much, Sufyan bhai. It's very, very impressive presentation, and I personally learned a lot. So, ekta question jeta chilo je আমরা compare করছি between the US and Bangladesh, the rainfall, এটার solutionটা. তো আমি যেটা দেখি, মানে from the layman's perspective, this is not my field, I'm in a different engineering field. So যখন মানে rainfall হয়, the amount of rainfall we have in Dhaka or in Bangladesh is much, much more than the US. So ওই same similar rainfall যদি আমেরিকায় হতো, তাহলে তো মানে আরো disastrous হয়ে যেত। তো আমেরিকার টেকনোলজিটা কি would that be applicable to Bangladesh kina? সেটা কি আপনারা মানে করেছেন কিনা স্টাডিটা? সেটা আর কি জানতে চাচ্ছিলাম।
This is what I said, Faisal. For Southeast Asia, is there any other country who are doing the better solution than yours?
Thank you,
like
Faisal.
Cambodia, Singapore,
Can I
Malaysia.
answer Faisal's question and wait for you, Rajak?
Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Faisal. Thanks. Yeah, obviously we look into. I gave you one specific example. It was a rain stop. Continuously, it rained 3 days in Dhaka city in 1996. The first day, the rate of rain was about, I remember exact number, about 37 millimeter per inch for 1 hour. Day, it was 28 inch per hour. Third day, it was 41.5 millimeter per hour. This is far exceeding New York City.
Exactly.
We are saying is that I cannot control 100%. What this biosphere is going to do is it will capture the first 25 millimeter of the rainfall. So if I take out
Azad, 1
25
second.
millimeter from 37, remaining is runoff. If I
Ji.
take out 25 millimeter from 41 millimeter, remaining is the runoff. That will be runoff, but your peak and the volume is going to be substantially reduced.
Reduced, yeah.
Saying alleviate the waterlogging, not eliminate.
Exactly. Okay, I got
Do
it.
the eliminate, that will
Yeah.
be tremendous work.
You're right.
That is not an engineering solution.
Okay, so one more
Thank you.
thing
Thank you
is
so much.
Azad has to leave very soon, but someone has a IoT question. So can you be very brief asking your question so that Azad can take that one, please?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Professor Motin from Buet. Sufyan bhai, assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Nice to hear from you.
Bhalo achen?
By the way, he's
Ji.
one of the advisors to the Bangladesh Atomic Energy Commission.
Sure.
Thank you very much for inviting me in this webinar.
It was a great pleasure to work with you.
Yeah, I have some suggestions to your presentation. You have said that the biosoils in the median, I think median of roads is very much applicable, but not in the footpaths. So you can discard the footpath. In our country, in Dhaka city, there is no space for the footpaths. So you can try for the medians only, for Dhaka city as well as other cities of the country. So one thing is that. Another thing is that in our country, you know, the rainfall is coming in the in wet season. That means monsoons. In that season, river level is very high. So drainage from canals is very much difficult. So pumping is necessary. So that's why gravity drainage is not possible in our Dhaka city. So pumping is always be a good solution. Pumping is fruitful. So without pumping, you cannot drain it out. Another important thing you have to use in addition to these your suggestions. So one thing is the rainwater harvesting. It may be for the recharge, it may be for the storage, it may be for the gardening, it's for the washing. It is very much good. A significant amount of rainwater can be harvested through the buildings. If legislation permits, the city corporation can ask to the dwellers, city dwellers, that they have to collect the rainwater through their roofs, through their gardens, through their space, these amounts. It can be mandatory. I work with the LGD in some places, so I suggest this rainwater harvesting as well as the retention ponds, development of retention ponds, and bioretentions, all these things I have suggested through my work. So I think you can add, especially for the Dhaka city, the rainwater harvesting through creating underground reservoir as well as these upground reservoirs. So you can add to your presentation these suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Motin. That was a good thing. Again, this presentation is purely on the biosoils. We have worked on those you just mentioned. I had a slide in my presentation of harvesting the rainwater with a barrel. New York City DEP is giving all those barrels free if somebody wants to do that. That is another solution. Now, I fully agree that all the medians should be fully utilized, number one. As Azad also said that the area underneath the metro rail should be fully utilized for infiltration basin. But sidewalks, I would not like to discard completely. If the sidewalk is there, we can do two things. One is put these biosoils if the width of the sidewalk is minimum 8 feet. If the width is smaller than that, so what we can do, we can put the infiltration basin underneath the sidewalk, whatever is the width, we can have longer length, but instead of your plants and the beautiful flowers and this and that, that will be a paved surface on the top, porous paving. You can still have those mini storage underneath the sidewalks. I did not address all other issues of detention. We are working in New York City right now as a phase 2, blue roof, green roof, detention basins, all these things are working right now. But this presentation was very limited just for the biosoils. That's what we have completed in the New York City in phase 1. Phase 2, yes, all those things can be included in the master plan, but those are a little more expensive, as well as it requires coordination of the homeowner. If the person doesn't want to put a green roof or the blue roof in his building, there is nothing we can do about it. So that's why we avoided that initially. Right away, we say that that sidewalk is within the right of way of the roadway, so we can do government priority, we can do that. But your comment is well taken, but that is the additional of controlling the rainwater.
Okay, go ahead, please ask your question.
Right. Can I ask?
Mm-hmm.
Bhai?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Jahangir Dhawan from California. It was a wonderful presentation, in fact, Sufyan Bhai. We learned a lot. In fact, I'm also from different area, so I had no clue. All I have seen water, rainwater, and I come from Borishal, so you name it, right? So we lived in water. So two kind of, I think, attack we see on us, rainwater as well as flooding I have seen in my early days. So one solution, I did my own house in California. That time I learned a little bit, like how drainage system works here. Like I had to do drainage since I built my own house. I had to know a little bit. So drainage for the rainwater around the house, like it goes to 6 feet, and somewhere at the corner, it dumps 6 feet down in a place. And also drainage system, I had to spend at least more than $100,000 outside, new drainage and all these. I don't know in Bangladesh, especially for rainwater, when they build multi-story buildings, whether they do this kind of thing or not, which is something that they throw everything on the street, or they have around drainage system, one thing. And also when flooding comes, especially in lowlands, so what will be the solution to take them out quickly? That you probably gave some of the solutions. And the next thing will be, how do you implement that? We have seen your presentation and Sadek Bhai's presentation in Cone. And after that, there was no follow-ups. I think Ajad Bhai is here. So we went all the way to contribute to our motherland. So what will be next? So that is not just another talk. So let's team up. Probably my suggestion will be, can we team up from our ABA and help start with the pilot in Dhaka or Chittagong City and then move forward? What do you think?
Okay, thank you, Jahangir. That
I have 3 questions, sorry.
আমি একটি প্রশ্ন করতে পারি কি?
ওরা একটু উত্তর দিয়ে নেই, এক সেকেন্ড।
আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে।
We have initiated the dialogue, as you already know, through Ajad with Mayor North City Corporation, Honorable Atikul Islam. He could not attend, but we will individually pursue through Ajad. I also contacted Barrister Taposh through one of my close friends, Barrister Mamoon. We are going to coordinate with that, but still, if ABA wants to take the lead and pursue this one, ABA is welcome to do that. We all have to employ our connection and influence to get this news to the right person so that they can take some decision. It's going to be a teamwork to get the responsible person involved. Otherwise, it is just a presentation. Right. That happened in Cone also, nothing, no follow-up. This time, I really want to pursue through the connections we have already developed and talk directly with the 2 mayors and see what happens.
Okay, so we can, Sufyan, we can also discuss this ABA issue on our own time at a later time.
আমি একটি প্রশ্ন করতে পারি?
Yes, the next question is coming from Mr. Harsh Said Bhai, then Dr. Modok, and then the third one is you, please. So go ahead, Harsh Bhai.
Thank
Please
you,
ask question.
Bhai. Very wonderful presentation, and I believe your presentation is but for a limitation of the Dhaka city, because we do not have enough space for creating a new stormwater line, large stormwater line, as we are doing a 12 feet diameter line here to abate that situation. It's wonderful, but question is that to go to the new cities, to go to the enterprise zone, government should have a plan to do their due diligence, their utility infrastructure, so that we do not create this type of small thing. Other thing is that for this type of Dhaka city, for example, the new area of the city, I believe government can impose a permit fee so that everybody develop their own swell, so that water from that area can be go through a permeable layer, and that is easy to do. It does not, and you can develop a design pro forma which can be utilized. Otherwise, if you see that the DIT Razuk will collect the money, they will never do it. Let the homeowner who is building a new house, let them do that. And if they do not do that, they should be imposed a additional permit fee, so that government can do that.
Yeah.
That is my comments here on.
That's what I was asking. You dump your water in your own place. Don't throw it on the street.
I agree with your comments.
Because you can easily, you have done wonderful job, Sufyan Bhai.
Thank you.
You are talking about these things for many years, about the rainwater harvesting when during the Farakka presentation and all other things. So there are things need to be combined. We do not like to see just one way road. There are combination of approach can be used there. That will be most beneficial. Right.
Okay, Shukamal, you have a question. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Sufyan Bhai, for a nice presentation. আর এখানে আমার শ্রদ্ধেয় শিক্ষক প্রফেসর নিশাত স্যার আছেন, মতিন স্যার আছেন, এমনকি ডক্টর মেহেদি আনোয়ার, উনি আমাদের শিক্ষক ছিলেন। আর এখানে আমার মনে হয় এটা একটা এই okay, I think the waterlogging problem needs a multifaceted solution, as Professor Motin, Dr. Motin already mentioned. So one part of the problem is reduce the problem. Another problem is control the hydrograph, control the one part. You can reduce the problem by doing this, or biosoil, or rainwater harvesting for reuse, or rainwater harvesting for groundwater research directly. Biosoil is one of the way of doing rainwater harvesting for groundwater research, slow process. Still, if you give lots of space and lots of opportunity, this is kind of enhanced natural process. So nature will do the job, but we don't have enough space. So with the amount of space, if you do biosoil with maximum possible way of doing it, still you will not be able to reduce the hydrograph significantly. You will still need to control the water, and extra water will be there. I believe that the amount of water you will actually do remove through the infiltration will not be enough to control the waterlogging. So still you will need to control, and that can be done through real-time control. And that will be enhanced by decision support system, or SCADA supervisory control, and that is to make the pump optimization. As Professor Motin already said, that you still need to do the pumping. So the question is how you use minimum energy to control the waterlogging. To do that, you need this real-time control, on which actually my friend Bhajan Sarkar, me, Sukamal Madhuk, and my brother Partho actually presented a paper in last BAPA BEN conference, where we actually showed that the two sides of the problem, reduction and control. And Bhajan is actively working on this. He has expertise on this real-time control. So well, I consider Supiyan Bhai's presentation is solution as a part of the solution, but may not be the complete solution. So that's my comment actually. So what do you think, Supiyan Bhai?
Yeah, I had the privilege to listen to your presentation at PEN BAPA. What I did not understand in the presentation that you have been talking about source control.
Yeah, this is source control.
What is the source of water causing the waterlogging? It's the rainfall.
Yeah.
How do you control the rainfall? I never said that the pumping is not a solution. I said, yes, pumping is a solution. Pumping is an expensive solution. Pumping will be required, particularly when we build that embankment, that so-called polder around the Dhaka city. We have no choice but to pump out the water because we killed the natural discharge of the canals into the river. Now we have created the problem. We have to solve the problem two ways. One, when the river water is high, you have to pump it out. When the river water is low, you discharge the water from the canal into the river by gravity, and you have to have those sluice gates. They have it already. Nishat already told you that I mentioned in our presentation, there are 4 large pumping stations. But what I mentioned also, that is inadequate to pump out the accumulated surface runoff, particularly when the canals will be restored or reclaimed, more water will be in the canal, and those pumps will be inadequate. You can add another 50 pumps. That is the solution, expensive solution. What I talked about is a one particular solution. I did not spread over all the green infrastructure, just one. And this we found out to be the most cost-effective solution of all the green infrastructure as well as gray infrastructure. Gray infrastructures include sewer pipes, gray infrastructures include pumping station, gray infrastructure includes treatment plants, all those things. Those are expensive and time-consuming solutions. Biosoils are the least expensive and easier to build solution. And I have been listening to one point over and over again that we don't have any space in the, yes, I agree 100%. I'm not saying that grab a new land and put the bioswale there. I'm saying put the bioswale if you have a sidewalk. Put the bioswale in the median of the street. Put the bioswale in the roadway itself. You don't need extra land for putting the bioswales. That was my point.
Okay, so let's go to the next question.
আমি বলতে চেয়েছিলাম,
জি প্লিজ গো অ্যাহেড।
আমি ইঞ্জিনিয়ার নই, নন ইঞ্জিনিয়ার, আমি এগ্রিকালচারের লোক। আমি ইন্টারেস্ট নিয়ে এখানে অংশগ্রহণ করেছি সকাল থেকে। আমি অভিনন্দন জানাই ডক্টর খন্দকার সুফিয়ান সাহেবকে তার এক্সেলেন্ট প্রেজেন্টেশনের জন্য। আমার শুধু 2টি প্রশ্ন। একটি হলো ঢাকাতে যেভাবে উনি দেখিয়েছেন যে গ্রিনিং করার জন্য যে রোড ডিভাইডার গুলোকে ইউজ করে গাছগাছরা লাগিয়ে সেখানে পানি ওয়াটার কালেকশনের ব্যবস্থা করার জন্য। আমার ঢাকা কেন, ঢাকার সমস্ত বাংলাদেশের যত সিটি আছে, শহর আছে, সব এতে রাস্তাগুলো এত ছোট, সেখানে যে সমস্ত ছোট ছোট রোড ডিভাইডার করা হয়েছে, তার মধ্যে যে বড় বড় গাছ লাগিয়েছে, সেই গাছগুলো আমাদের যখন বৃষ্টি হয়, বৃষ্টির মৌসুমে ঝড়ও হয়, সেই ঝড়ের সময় সেই গাছগুলো পরে যে ক্রিয়েট করে, সেখানে আমরা হাই মানে প্লান্টেশন, কোন ধরনের প্লান্টেশন আমরা সাপোর্ট করব? আমার ধারণা সেখানে আপনার হাফ শার্প বা ছোট ছোট ফ্লাওয়ার ডিজাইনিং করা যেতে পারে একটি। আর একটা রেইন কালেকশন, যেটা করা, রেইন ওয়াটার কালেকশনের কথা বলেছেন, আমরা এগ্রিকালচারে একবার চেষ্টা করে দেখেছিলাম যে বর্ষার সময় পানিগুলো ক্ষেতের খামারের কর্নারে কালেকশন করা যায় কিনা। এটা তো খুব বেশি সময় টেকে না, তো এটা সিটিতে কতটুকু এটার সম্ভাবনা আছে? আমরা হাতির ঝিলের কথা তুলেছেন, ওখানে একটি বিল্ডিং ভাঙানোর জন্যই আমাদের 4-5 বছর লেগে গেছে। এখন আমাদের ঢাকার যে বড় বড় ক্যানেল গুলো ছিল, যেগুলো দিয়ে পানি যেত, ধানমন্ডির পানি নামতো, তারপরে আপনার ওই কি বলে পুরান ঢাকার পানি নামতো, সব ড্রেন গুলোর উপরে এখন হাই রাইজ বিল্ডিং হয়ে গেছে। এগুলো ভাঙ্গা কি অত সহজ হবে? আর এর কথা বলেছেন যে আপনার এই পাম্পিং এর কথা। আমি থাকি আদাবর এলাকায়। এই আদাবর এলাকায় যদি আপনার না হতো, পাম্পিং এর ব্যবস্থা না হতো, ওই রিং রোড না করা হতো, তাইলে 88 এর বন্যার সময় আমাদের সমস্ত বিল্ডিং এর দোতলা পর্যন্ত পানির নিচে চলে গেছিল। এখন এই পাম্পিং এর কারণে বা ওই রিং রোড হওয়ার ফলে আমরা কিন্তু এই এলাকার লোকগুলো বেঁচে গেছি। তেমনি ভাবে যদি আমরা শুনতেছি যে আপনার ইস্ট সাইডে, ঢাকার ইস্টে যে পাম্পিং এর প্রপোজাল, সেগুলো নাকি বন্ধ হয়ে যাচ্ছে। তো এইগুলো সম্পর্কে আপনাদের ধারণাটা কি, আমরা একটু জানতে চাই।
Sure, Subhan, please.
Again, rainwater harvesting is another solution. And that has been gradually implemented in many places. And selectively, that can be done in Dhaka city as well. If I know that in Bermuda, they have a very limited rain, they survive on rainwater. So their roofs are designed accordingly, and they collect all the rainwater, and that's the way they solve their water supply problem. In terms of pumping, we have talked about that, yes, there will be a need of pumping no matter what, because of the configuration, because of the embankment we already built surrounding Dhaka city. Now the question is that we are trying to limit the expensive solutions with the alternatives, this unique alternatives, which is much more cost effective.
Okay, Pakar, you have a question. Go ahead, please.
Okay. I'm not an engineer. I'm an academician. Thank you, Sufyan Bhai. I just came in, I saw your email, and then I thought I attend you. And I can see in the Jamaica Estates area, I can see a lot of the biosoil things that they are constructing, so it's helping us. So what I'm just trying to say that the experts, what they say is we need to have a multi-pronged approach. The number one, which is least expensive, is the one water harvest. Every house or new house must have a reservoir, and in their house, and an underground reservoir. That water should be filtered and be used for their consumption, cooking and others. So 1 gallon makes, you add gallons and it becomes million gallons. So whatever way we can address this address, I think we should. So that's the least expensive, may not be no expense to the government. Just every house owner or building owner has to create a reservoir, huge reservoir, maybe whatever amount you can accommodate, and pump and use that water after filtration for their daily consumption, number one, in addition to other things. Second thing, they have biosol, that is also helpful, that the suggestion you have made in the dividers, that's also a good thing to have. And cleaning canal, that's of course we need to salvage those canals and recover those. And also another thing, that can we have also a huge drain, see, under the street, huge, I'm saying the mega, leading to embankment and pumping out the water. So without any experience, without any engineering knowledge, this is as a layman, as a biologist, I thought, these are multi-pronged approach. Sufyan bhai, I can chat to you some other time, and we can talk maybe tomorrow morning. We live in very close here in New York. So.
Thank you, Dr. Patwari. Yeah, as I said, let me answer. Rainwater harvesting with the barrels. Yes, that is a very cost-effective solution, but that is a voluntary solution that cannot be enforced unless you change the law. In New York City DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, if you go there, they will give you the barrel free. You take the barrel and put in your house, but it's voluntary. DEP cannot force you to have a rain barrel. So that is a voluntary system that can be done. That is, I agree with you, is a very inexpensive solution. Building a large trunk sewer. I have designed 27 feet wide by 12 feet wide trunk sewer in New York City, in Queens. We can put underneath the roadways, but the cost is unbelievable. So this is what we call gray infrastructure. Gray infrastructure is 25 to 30 times more expensive than the green infrastructure. That's why we have changed back into the green infrastructure concept. Yes, if you have the money, you have the time, you can do all those gray infrastructure, and that will solve the problem. But we are looking into least expensive solution, and green infrastructure provides you that.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I enjoyed, and I had your previous seminar too, and I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Dr. Patwari.
Can I ask a
Go
question?
ahead. Yeah, anyone has any more questions, please go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Kandakar. Thank you for the very informative presentation. I learned a lot. One thing I learned was the groundwater was sinking in Bangladesh, was dropping, which I was not aware. I keep reading about sea levels rising, where that'll have a tremendous effect on Bangladesh with climate change and everything. Will that have an effect on the bioswales with sea levels rising, like in 10, 20, 30 years?
That's a good question, but again, I concentrated only on the Dhaka city. Right now, groundwater level is 40 meters below the surface. Now, climate change impact in increasing the groundwater in the Dhaka city is possibly going to be minimum. And again, for this bioswale to function properly, the bottom of the bioswale is only 2 meters below the surface. As long as the groundwater does not rise from 40 meters below surface to 2 meters, which is unlikely, the functioning of the bioswale will not be affected.
I see. Thank you.
Anyone else has any question? Go ahead. Sabi Salim had some question. I think you had text. Unmute yourself. You have to.
Hello, hi. Hi, this is Momin Kudus. I don't know whether you can give me the opportunity to ask the question.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Hi, my question was that I used to live in Florida, and they had similar structures where they would, I guess, drop the water into the water table. And in certain situations, when the water table rose, the streets would flood because the water would come backwards. Is there a engineering solution to this phenomena?
Yes, I had a problem in New York City. It's in the Rockaway area. The drains are discharged into the Jamaica Bay, but when the Jamaica Bay water rises, it can backflow through the same sewer system into the streets and this and that. The solution we have provided in those cases is to install a backflow prevention device. It could be a check valve in the pipe, or it could be a duck bell. Duck bell is a similar concept. So that valve will only allow water to go one way, towards the bay or towards the, when the bay water is high, the valve will automatically close and the water cannot come through the pipe into the streets or your house. This is a different solution and different problem.
Right, thank you.
আমার একটা প্রশ্ন আছে সুফিয়ান ভাইয়ের কাছে।
প্লিজ।
যে আমরা আপনি যে বায়োফিল্টার গুলো ইউজ করছেন প্রাইমারিলি গ্র্যানুলার ফিল্টার, তাই না?
Yes.
তাহলে যে the kind of pollutants that are mostly happens in urban areas and non-source pollutants, so water contaminants. So they're primarily oil or other things that drop from people discharge, etc. illegally. So all those, how do you take care of those kind of pollutants, like for example organics and so on? Because I'm not so sure your biofilters, you mentioned anything about them being taken care of by your biofilters, although you call them biofilters. So are there anything in that you didn't talk about?
No, the construction, as I said, the first layer is going to be geotextile or filter fabric. Then is going to be the coarse material, which is we are using in New York City is stones. Then on top of that, we put the topsoil just to install the plant as well as the flowers and things like that. So we are relying on that when the water goes through the topsoil, through the coarse material, and through the filter fabric or geotextile, most of the suspended materials will be eliminated. So water, relatively clean water, will get into the groundwater. Now, the question of oil, is a problem. That what is going to do if the oil or residual oil materials gets into the system, can clog the filter system, filter fabric. Over years of use, we had pilot project to study into that in worst scenario, you may have to replace those filter material in 10, 15 years, if that is the case.
That's a pretty long service life. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
The second question I had was your comment to some other person that the water level rise, seawater level rise due to global warming will have minimal effect in Dhaka. But I'm concerned that because of the higher water level rise, it will definitely affect the flow of rivers. And so it will slow the outflow of anything that you pump out. or either use gravity. So there is a chance that the reliance on pumping has to be significantly increased to the point that it might wipe out all of the economic benefits that we may derive from using any other methods of trying to deal with this waterlogging problem.
Yeah, that's correct, Farag. The only thing is that I try to do is that one component is the sea level rise. The projections of all these ICCPs is that maybe in 2100 there might be a rise of a meter. When we are talking about groundwater is 40 meters below the surface, I don't see that is a problem for Dhaka. That might be a problem for the coastal cities. Yes, I agree with that, that the pumping, if we cannot devise the solutions we have, like self-operating tide gates, equipped culverts that will release the water through the canal into the surrounding river when the water level is low. If you have to continuously pump it, if the water level in the surrounding river is always high, then we have a different problem. We have to pump it out, and current pumping system may be barely pumping out the water. In the future, that could be aggravated by the combination of problems. The frequency or the capacity of the pumping may have to be increased, but in my presentation, goal was to minimize the use of gray infrastructure, as we call pumping, sewer lines, that kind of things, and try to rely on nature, try to mimic the hydraulic cycle so that more water is infiltrated into the ground. That was the goal of this presentation.